Hello, and welcome to Seeing Red. It is Monday, April 22nd, 2024. I am Will Leitch here, as always, with the great Bernie Miklasz. Bernie, I was hoping for at least 500 coming into this week. It did not turn out that way. The Cardinals are they're down bad, as the kids say these days. Goodness gracious. After two, frankly, not all that impressive wins in Oakland, they lost four in a row. They lost four in a row, and in about as demoralizing a way as you can. Friday, scoring one run on a bases-loaded walk. Saturday, actually coming out to a lead and then having the bullpen implode on him and Miklasz implode on him. And then really the piece de resistance, Sunday, Sonny Gray being fantastic as he has consistently been since joining the Cardinals, but them just not being able to score a run at all. Now, Bernie, as always, whenever we have these discussions, I'm always wondering, how much we should talk about our panic level or the fans' panic level. But I'm actually more urgently, it was funny. I watched the game Sunday afternoon. I've been busy. My kids have been running around. My kids have school and games, and it's just hard to sit down. Sunday, Cardinals have been on the West Coast, so I've yet to be able to have like one of my favorite Sunday afternoon activities, which is to go over to Brian Leitch house, my parents' house, and we all just sit and hang out with the dog and watch a Cardinals game and just sit and just really get to enjoy, just like I did growing up. And that was the game. That was the game was Sunday, where it was just nothing after that catch on Newport. There was just nothing happening. But I thought it was interesting before the game. You could tell there were some lineup changes. Goldschmidt went down to fifth. Mo gave one of his interviews with Jim Hayes beforehand, where it's like, we're staying the course. We're doing our thing. We understand that everyone in this clubhouse frustrated. The thing we've seen like a million times right now. Right. The question is, you and I can be frustrated. Fans are clearly frustrated. There were boos. There were a lot of empty seats. Sunday, they gave away that cute little hat. So there were a lot of people Sunday, but a lot of empty seats on Friday and Saturday. We can be upset. Fans can be upset. The team itself, how worried they appear to be a little worried, and they made some changes, and Mo went out and talked on Sunday, but then they do the catcher thing and they don't bring up Sagassi or whatever moves they want to make. What do you think? How concerned is the team, and how concerned should the team be?
Yeah, it's a tough question. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's bad. It's really bad. But they do have a pretty good foundation with their pitching, and people deny that because, the thing of it is when fans of any team, they get really, really mad. I mean, it's like there's a refusal to acknowledge that anything's decent or good, But the Cardinals continue to pitch pretty well. There are some exceptions to that, of course, but they really, since Sonny Gray, for example, came back to the rotation, or since he joined the rotation, I should say, they've got a starting pitching ERA is 3.58, and it's one of the better ones in baseball. Bullpen's been really good, and now that they got Andre Palante out of there, the bullpen will be even better. So last year they never had a foundation. I mean, they didn't have pitching, they didn't play good defense, they didn't run the bases very well. At least this season, they do have a foundation, at least a much better foundation in those areas than they had last season. I'm talking about pitching. I'm talking about defense. I'm talking about base running. I'm talking about run prevention. But they just can't hit. I mean, my point is, I don't want to stray from what's going on here. There are a lot of players on that team in terms of pitching, starter or relievers. Not all, but there are a lot of guys actually doing a good job. There are a lot of guys playing really good defense. There are a lot of guys running the bases, moving up and, taking those extra bases. So I don't want to stray into these other areas because it's all about the hitting. They have no offense. This would be the lowest scoring team they've ever had, since DeWitt took over in 1996. I mean, they're now last in the National League in runs per game. They've had 3 runs or less in 12 of their last 14 games. Walker's doing nothing. Gorman's doing nothing. Arenado's heating up, yes, but he still has only 1 homer. Goldie is the big elephant in the room that people didn't want to talk about. Now it's out in the open and people are talking about it. Even Brendan Donovan has really cooled off. You can't win with this kind of offense. I mean, the Cardinals starting pitchers have given them chances to win games, like during this 14-game stretch where they've had all these 3 runs or less games. Um, in 5 of those games, Cardinals starting pitchers allowed no more than 2 runs. And so they've had numerous opportunities to win games, even if just the offense was average, even and let alone slightly above average, or if the offense was good.
I think there's been 5 games if the offense would have done anything at all.
Right, right. So I mean, I think imagine this. I'm being disciplined in my messaging, but it's really true. It's really true. I can't explain it. I mean, everybody wants to blame Ali Marmol for everything. But come on now, if guys who are supposed to be hitting aren't hitting at all, then what I'm not sure where the manager gets scapegoated for that. I don't understand that, but it is what it is. People are furious about everything, and the manager's going to take a lot of the heat. I do get that, but um they just need more from guys who should be doing more. At this point, I wonder how much more Goldschmidt can do, and that's kind of alarming to even say that. But they really need some guys to come through when it's time to come through. In this 14-game stretch where they're 5-9, they've scored all those 3 runs or less games. I mean, you got you got like their best hitters. I added it all up. They're hitting like 125 with runners in scoring position. I mean, just a few more timely hits would have changed the outcome of some of these games, right? So I'm just there's a lot more to talk about. Don't get me wrong, but I'm going to put the focus on that. If we want to complain about pitching, I'm happy to talk about Miles Michaelis, but I'm just saying, let's keep our eye on what's really going on here.
I don't think there's any question. And it's funny. I think if you're going to go, I think if you were to criticize Marmol for anything, and he's not the reason this is happening, it's hard. At least you can't blame him for what's happening. I would say you saw more urgency with the lineup on Sunday. I was glad we didn't get a getaway day lineup on that. But I would argue was that that lefty for the Brewers, Murphy, who was just mowing people down.
Mhm.
Like that to me seems like a time like that. Again, I know I'm a Burleson skeptic, but that Burleson at bat, like that's a time where I'm like, okay, now's the time to get Herrera in there. Like that's a key moment where you want to
Sure.
get for me, that feels like the time where you shake it up. It just feels like you've got to get some runs on the board, even if you just got one, just to prove that you can, the way that game was going on Sunday. But I think that's smaller. That's on the margins.
Well, those things happen. Those things happen every day. I mean,
Yeah,
I mean across
yeah.
baseball. It's just like everyone was going nuts. Some, including some of my friends, going nuts because they pitched to William Contreras Friday night. I mean, come on. If Ryan Helsley is one of the best closers in baseball, if you don't have confidence in him to get William Contreras out, and by the way, before that at bat, Contreras was 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts against Helsley, small sample or whatever. I mean, listen, I kept telling my friends that I was debating with about this. It says they scored 1 run, okay? So why are you fixating on one decision? They scored 1 stinking run,
on a walk, on a base loaded walk, by the way.
Yeah. And it's like, so why do people just blow gaskets over one moment in the game when you can't score a run? That's the problem. Let's not get away from the problem.
Agreed. And I think that's what I mean is I think there's little moments that I think reflect what you'd like to see a little bit more urgency, but at a certain level, for crying out loud,
Right.
I mean, it is hard to look at some of these numbers. As I know that in my
Awful.
I wrote the MLB power rankings for MLB this morning, as I know in the Cardinals bullet. Paul Goldschmidt, in his second at bat of the year, had that home run and does not have an extra base hit since. That is remarkable. That is remarkable.
I don't know that it's a fluke outlier type
it
thing.
Doesn't look it doesn't look like it.
Right.
Like the exit velocity is not, that was the thing last year, right? He took a slight step back last year, but the exit velocity numbers,
hard hit stuff,
there.
all that stuff was really good last year. Yeah, you're right.
It's not good this year. It's not good this year. And frankly, it feels he had that single. He had the single yesterday that kind of kept it going late, but like that was still like he kind of fisted it over, and like that's still like a ball that he usually drives. He just kind of barely got it over the shortstop's head. He's just not The bat speed's slow. He's not driving the ball. And then you kind of go around. Nolan Gorman, I swear to God, he's literally walking up to the plate with an 0-2 count. Like it's happening every single time. I don't
Yeah.
know. I feel like we should do a replay to see how exactly that's happening. I assume it's probably a pitch clock, right? He's walking too slow to the plate, I guess, because he seems to be down 0-2 every single time he comes up. Well, I know we talked about this last week. I couldn't help but notice that Walker was out of the lineup 2 of the last 4 games against right-handed pitchers. And I think I agree with you that Walker's a guy they have to have going. I also feel like at a certain level, it's like, dude, somebody's got to do something. And Walker looks a step late. That's a bottle short on everything right now. He's hitting the ball on the ground when he hits the ball hard at all. And he's another guy that feels like he's always behind 0-2 or 1-2. Burleson, again, like I appreciate the Burleson hit the ball to the opposite. He always, Chip Carey says this every single time Burleson comes up to the plate. Hey, that's a guy that spreads the ball around. If he just hit that ball down left field, yeah, fine. But what you really see is my issue with Burleson is he had a couple balls to drive and he hit them hard, quote unquote, and they still got to the warning track. Like I feel like Burleson is a guy that in a late game, you need a tough at bat. You saw this on Friday where you need like a guy to put the ball in play late in the game. And there's not, I appreciate Burleson being that guy. He's not more than that right now. And I think that's part of the problem. Arenado, again, is coming around a little, but still is not hitting the ball with a lot of authority.
No.
I still feel like he's kind of punching it a little bit. Donovan, I think, is just in a natural kind of slow slump right now. You can kind of see him trying to do too much. I think you see that with Newt Bar too. I think you see that with Newt Bar. Like Newt Bar has taken some pitches that he just can't take. We saw that on Friday and Sunday, where he's very frustrated with the call. And I think you see that Donovan was frustrated with the call on Sunday. You're seeing them increasingly frustrated with calls. I don't think I can see where they're coming from on a lot of those calls. But for crying out loud, they stranded 31 batters over the weekend. You know how you strand batters? Don't swing. Don't swing. Their biggest RBI of the weekend was a bases loaded walk.
Right.
There is a tentativeness to them right now, which in the macro, I don't know if necessarily is the worst thing. I like that about Donovan. I like that about Nootbaar, that they're selective hitters, that they won't chase too far out of the zone. But right now, someone's got to do something. Someone's got to do something because there is just an inherent flatness that's going on. And listen, they've made some moves. They sit down Scott, which I understand. I think
Sure.
I hardly get excited by Ciani, but Scott is they're knocking the bat out of his hands right now. And so at a certain level,
he's there to catch the ball.
Yeah.
Until Carlson, or at least until Carlson gets back. What are you going to do? It's a shame they don't have a better option than that. But I do appreciate the way he runs the bases and catches the ball.
I mean, honestly, watching Scott,
if you got to rely on Mike Ciani for offense, you know what that means? Your offense is garbage. That's what that means.
So I think this is the overarching question, and not just the whole season, but frankly, like the whole thing going on with this team right now and the whole thing going on with the franchise, the boos that you're hearing. And listen, we've talked about this before. I am not a booer. I do not begrudge booing. I've gotten hollered at that before for not begrudging booing. I think booing is a perfectly acceptable response for a paying customer that has come to accept a certain baseline product. And I think it is, I'm not a booer, but I understand and do not begrudge people for doing so.
People should do what they want as long as it's within the bounds of decency.
Don't be an asshole, right?
Yeah, don't throw things and don't especially if there's kids around, you don't use don't cuss like I do off the air or away from
like
the
I do when the boys the boys know I can curse like that when I'm behind terrible Georgia drivers.
Right.
But otherwise you don't do it when you're yelling at
that's right
at players. But at a certain level, you're clearly seeing it. Friday and Saturday, some of the crowds were rough, man. Rough for a big division series.
Don't blame them.
And again, that is not, and we've talked before about how that is the thing that DeWitt notices. And we've also talked before about how booing Mo, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of what spending money is. And so we don't have to go down that rabbit hole. I'm just saying that that is undeniable. There are two emotions that Cardinals fans are having watching this team right now. One is frustration, annoyance, booing and the other, and I would argue the potentially more perilous emotion is just like dismissal and apathy, right? And I think that's the worry, and you're seeing it. I think you're clearly seeing it, and I think it's a buildup. And it's frankly a buildup that's not just from last year. The Pujols year was so wonderful and so such a blast, and just such a great gift that Pujols gave the Cardinals that year. And Goldschmidt was great, and Arenado was great. It was a great season. But heading up to that season, remember when they signed Pujols, the whole idea was like, oh, they're just trying to do a nostalgia play because they're not willing that because the team is falling off, which was I would argue was you got it right. Like I understood that criticism. Pujols turned out to be awesome, but he might not have been. And if they had not have been, this is another example of the slow but undeniable decline that fans are seeing. Now, this is the question, though. Going back to what you were talking about in the offense being garbage. This to me is the fundamental question because if the offense does not get fixed, and by fix I don't mean well get out there and trade for that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying whether this offense, which I think myself, yourself, and many outside reasonable observers thought this could be the strength of this team. The strength of this team, they should be able to score runs. It is uniquely demoralizing when they can't score. Do you think they can turn it around? Are there guys you look at and say, okay, this is obviously this is not who they are forever, but how much improvement can you expect for them? Or do you feel like this is maybe not this, but only a little bit better than this is what they are?
I don't know. It's hard for me to answer that. Listen, Arenado's coming along. We know that the power's not all the way there yet for him, but he's coming along. Listen, I got faith in Newtbar. I got faith in Donovan. I have to believe Walker's going to start hitting. We like the way that Mason Wynn's hitting. I have to believe that there's going to be a point in time where Nolan Gorman, just settles down or something and, goes on one of those rampages. Contreras is a hell of a hitter. There's no complaints whatsoever about him. And we could go down the line with some of these other guys, even Burleson over the last 14 games where they're not scoring runs. He's been one of their better hitters overall, hitting 270. I mean, so there's guys there that are doing some things and can do more. But I would answer it this way. Do I think this offense is going to evolve into the kind of offense that we all, like you said, reasonable-minded people, the kind of offense that we anticipated? That's the question. I no longer really have confidence in that. I'm not ruling it out. I'm just saying I don't feel as confident about that, understandably, as I did before the season. But there's a potential to get better. They will get better. How much better is the question. Now I want to circle back real quick, talking about the anger and the apathy. All right. And the Cardinals have been really bad for the second year in a row. They're really bad. They're at least have some time to turn around this year, but they're terrible at home. They're absolutely terrible at home. They've now lost 6 straight games to the Brewers at Busch Stadium, 8 out of their last 12 to the Brewers at Busch Stadium. Since the start of last season, the Cardinals are 38-52 at Busch Stadium. That's a .422 winning percentage. That is the worst since the start of last season. That is the worst winning percentage at home by a National League team and the third worst overall at home in Major League Baseball. So when you've defaulted on what used to be a tremendous strength, the home field advantage. When you've defaulted on that, now it's become a home field weakness, a home field disadvantage, and the style of baseball, the lack of action, the lack of home runs, the lack of extra base hits, big innings. It's a really boring team, and it's a really boring team that loses at home and repeatedly loses at home. I mean, come on, 38-52. So no, I don't blame anyone who would boo, voice their displeasure, or decide, well, I bought these tickets, but there's something else I'd rather do this weekend. I want to go see this, want to go do that. I don't blame anybody at all for feeling that way. I mean, I just wanted to get that on record because sometimes I think I'm a little hard on fans. I get accused of that. It's fair. Sometimes I do go a little overboard, but I don't blame the fans at all for any of this. I just wish they would complain about the right thing. That's all. There's a lot to complain about, but I would just say, let's all get together and complain about the stuff that we should be complaining the most about. And, yesterday, like I braved the Twitter frontier yesterday just to throw some stats out there, and people were getting mad at me and whatever. And but there's a lot of fire Marmol stuff, and I'm not gonna go into a big thing about this. I'll just leave it at this. When you say fire Marmol, number one, I understand your frustration and anger. I truly do. Okay, you're venting. I get it. I don't blame you, but you do realize if they fire Marmol, John Mozeliak's still going to be there. So I'm just saying, you got to think these things through a little bit, even though I understand the emotion. I really do.
And the emotion, I think, is very honest and very fair.
Yes.
And honestly, one thing we can certainly all agree on that will upset fans is, hey, the last time I went out to a game, I saw them lose. And then I went to go see him again, and I saw them lose. All I wanted, again, I joke about this, but we've really been the way the schedule has worked out. I've not been able to have one of my it's just a family thing that we love to do, to go over on Sundays and watch and watch the game and hang out with the dog and grill out. It's just what we do on Sundays. And
wait, what did the dog? When's the dog going to just say, no, I'm not watching this game with you people?
Well, for the record,
put me out in the backyard.
My sister did get him like a Cardinals sweater, and he didn't like it. He did not like it.
Is he a Braves fan? Is that what we're talking about?
He's not a monster, please. But the point is that I don't know if we have it's not like when that game was over, we all left being like, oh my gosh, we have to come back and do this immediately as quickly as possible. They're not fun. It's a bad product. It's a bad product. And we can all have debates, and some people will be too unreasonable, and some people will whatever. We can all have disagreements on what they should do. But the undeniable thing is, the one thing that fans can definitely do is stop watching. And you are seeing it. You are seeing it. It is hard for me to look as a Cardinals fan for many, many years. It is hard for me to sit and look at how many empty seats are at these games. It's hard to see that sort of certain apathy. It's hard to see. I don't like seeing this much negativity. It's weird. This podcast is called Seeing Red, and we always kind of get after them. But I hope that I'm not doing too much of a secret here, but I really like the Cardinals and want them to do well.
Right.
And I think everybody is generally on that page. And so this is a result. In 2004, I know there was no Twitter, but if there were, I'm gonna bet people were still not quite that mad. That team was awesome, and they were doing great. And let's not forget another thing they did that year. As good as they were, they went out and got one of the best players in baseball in the middle of the season. They were aggressive, and I think that is the question here. The fundamental thing, that question I think we need to try to figure out the answer to, because can the Cardinals do something, or do they have to stay put? And it's a hard question, because I do feel there is a certain lack of urgency. I think you see it. I think it sneaks up a little. I thought Sundays, but it always feels like a public relations emergency rather than an active emergency. When something happens, when they have as bad of a weekend as they had, they basically do the Mo talks before the game.
Right.
Right. They do that sort of thing, as opposed to, again, they need offense. Maybe that's the time to get Sagasi or something. Maybe it's a time to whatever, some sort of aggressive move, some sort of something. I think you can make an argument that bringing up Pedro Pagas or whatever his name is
Pages.
Pages. Thank you. Can I just say Pages? I'm a stupid.
I know, right? I do that too. I'm
an ugly American from Manchester, Illinois. I'm doing the best I can. But the point is that at a certain level, I understand that move, because basically it allows you to get Contreras and Herrera in the lineup at the same time, because those are the two dudes that are actually hitting. But I also think it's a good thing to look at when you talk about the lineup. Again, anecdotally, but I will say there are three dudes in this lineup that go to the plate every time looking like they have a plan, with aggression, with poise, and they're ready to attack when it happens. Wilson Contreras, Ivan Herrera, and Mason Wynn. Those are the three guys. Every single time you go up there, you feel like you're going to get some sort of a fight of an at bat. And they have different styles of hitting than a Nolan Gorman, than a Paul Goldschmidt.
Listen, he's cold lately because he's trying to do too much, but I would put Brendan Donovan in that category.
Agreed. I would too. But the point is that I find myself watching Contreras and watching Herrera being like, okay, just get up there and hit the damn ball.
Right.
Like, it does feel like Gorman is so stuck in his head. Goldschmidt is both stuck in his head and also perhaps slowly realizing that he is 36 or 37 years old and there's stuff that he's not going to be able to do that wasn't working before. Walker is clearly in that spot of like caught in between.
He's in his own head. No, he is. And he's not real happy. And you can tell body language is bad.
And you just see that, and like those are the guys that are slumping, and so you find yourself, I don't know, like I look at Gorman right now, and I know he's in a bad spot, and I know he's come out of it before, but you look at him right now, and you're like, we could put that guy, we put this guy up 4 times today. He's got to strike out 4 times, and I think you're seeing that. You can see that with Goldschmidt. You can put this guy up 4 times right now. He does not look close to busting out of anything, and so the balance of the long term and the short term that you have to do, where you're like, listen, the only way they're getting out of this, I say long term, I mean in the spectrum of this season, not just this week. So to this season, the only way you're getting out of this is if Goldschmidt starts hitting and Gorman starts hitting and Walker starts hitting. It's the only way you're getting out of it. But in the short term, they are definitely not hitting right now. And the Cardinals keep losing games that are going to put themselves behind the 8 ball, particularly because I'm very happy with how the pitching is going right now. I think you should be pleased with it. Miklasz is a mess. And I love how Miklasz, but by the way, always blames bad luck when it doesn't work out for him. But when it does work out for him, it's because he's just good.
No,
Yeah.
there's 2 people that need to stop talking because they say the same thing over and over again. And it's incredibly repetitive, redundant, and irritating. The first would be, and you alluded to it, the John Mozeliak fireside chats before the game. And number 2 would be Miles Michaelis talking about soft contact. Stop it. Nobody wants to hear it, okay? Your ERA is awful. Since you signed that new contract, he's got a 4.98 ERA. In his last 27 starts, it's more like 5.7 or something. I mean, no, it's not soft contact, okay? Shut up about that. All due respect.
Yeah, I mean, listen, his best years were also partly driven by bat and ball and play luck.
Yeah.
Like, and that's fine. So like, it is very, it's the when things go great, it's because you did it, and because when things went bad, it's because people were stacked against you. It's that same kind of.
And he can't. But by the way, he can't. The stuff that's talked about on the broadcast a lot is absolutely accurate, and I won't read the numbers, but I looked them up. I'll probably have them online today when I finish my piece for at scoopswithdannymac.com. But he gets so many batters down in a 2-strike count and just can't finish them off. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's just like there's no advantage, very little advantage to when he's got 2 strikes on a hitter. That's a really bad thing, and this goes all the way back to last year.
And so, and again, I think the hitting is obviously the problem, but another thing that we should probably keep in mind is these games count now. These are the games being banked. And at some point, I'm pretty happy with the starting rotation so far.
Yeah.
But
Bullpen's good.
But the presumption that it will stay like that,
right,
is, I mean, I hope so. But like, if you look at the underlying metrics, like I'm very happy, like Lance Lynn's got 2.18 ERA. Look at the underlying metrics. His FIP is 490. I know I don't want to go too down the rabbit hole of like metrics and so on.
Oh yeah, they don't have a lot of good FIPs. That's right. They don't.
I mean, like Gibson has a worse FIP than Michaelis does. Now,
because it's a reflection of the lack of strikeout stuff. Although Lynn does have some of that, And
I understand that, and I get it. And I've been happy with Gibson. He had a good start this week. I'm not complaining about Gibson, but I'm just saying there's reason to think that I'm going to bet that Lance Lynn is not going to have a 2.18 ERA at the end of the season.
Right.
I'm going to bet Sonny Gray is not going to have a 1.04 ERA at the end of the season. Eventually, some of this starting pitching and frankly, some of this bullpen stuff is going to come back to earth a little bit. I'm not saying it's going to be bad, but it's going to come back a little bit. And
I don't know. I mean, the bullpen strikes out a lot of people, and
I'm happy with it. I'm just saying the bullpen's been exceptional.
And they have more of those guys that haven't even pitched yet. Last year for a bullpen in this age of strikeouts from the bullpen, the Cardinals were terrible. Their bullpen did not strike all that many guys out, relatively speaking. They're punching out guys left and right, and they still have pieces in the minors that could come up and do the same thing. I think the bullpen's going to do fine. I mean, their ERA, if you take Palante's horrible workout, you take his stuff, because he's now going down to repurpose as a starter, which I think is a smart idea.
Yeah, why
I
not?
mean, I mean, the rest of the bullpen's got like a 2.65 ERA and like a 30% strikeout rate, and I don't think there's anything fluky about it.
I'm not
So
saying any of these things are fluky. I'm just saying
there is some underlying indications that are troubling with the rotation. I don't see those things at all with the bullpen. That's all I'm trying to say.
and I think that's fair. But certainly, right now, the Cardinals are not supporting the bullpen with their offense.
No.
But this presumption that once the offense gets going, that will solve all the problems. There are still issues with this rotation, and I've been pleasantly surprised. I think it's worked out as well as you could possibly hoped it could have worked out. But it's also only been a month, and so when we say, hey, you know what, this offense has got to get it going, and they're too good at hitters not to do it. That's true. You can also take that from the other direction and say, you know, the rotation may be pitching a little bit above its head right now, and the problem is if the offense figured out, which again is we're just hoping is going to happen rather than being certain is going to happen. Even if the offense figures it out, by then we may spring another leak somewhere else. And I think that's what's particularly frustrating about this moment, because as we've seen, these things can snowball. Like these things can really snowball, particularly in a pitching aspect. But when things start going bad, we saw it last year, right? And I think they're freaking out a little less than they did last year. Though again, I think we're still a week away or a week and a half away from the Contreras incident. So from last year. So like there's still time for them to freak out at a certain level. But that's the thing that's hard about this is it's not just that the offense is struggling. It's that they're leaving wins on the table and they're going to need those.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think that's the thing I'm most concerned about.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And they also need to start winning games at home. I mean, they won those first 2 games for Miami, and since then they're 1-6. That's an embarrassment. It's a disgrace. It really is. Listen, I like their run prevention because I think the combination of the starters going deeper into games and the bullpen being really good and the defense being much improved. You know, the Cardinals have right now are number 10 in baseball in run prevention. I don't think that's a fluke. I think that'll hold up relatively well. But you know, at some point, again, you have to have run support for these guys because they're doing a hell of a job, and the starters are going deeper into games. In fact, I think their average innings per start is in the top 6 or 7 in the major leagues. I mean, and third or fourth in the National League. So they're doing their job in that regard. And when they turn the games over to the bullpen's doing a really nice job. There have been a couple blow-ups, but again, Palante's no longer going to be here, so that's good news. But no, they just can't score, and it puts everything. It puts a lot of pressure and a lot of stress, a lot of the burden on the pitching staff, and will that cause the pitching staff to stress and fracture a little bit? And maybe, but I still like their upside in terms of preventing runs because again, I look at it as pitching and defense. It's one entity. You can't separate the two.
Right.
So I think in that regard, they're in real good shape. I'm not saying they got the great pitching staff. I didn't say that, but they're preventing runs in a way that they weren't even remotely close to a year ago. I mean, they're doing a really good job there, and that's the importance of defense all over again. I think the manager's done a really good job trying to manufacture runs, moving people over, getting that mentality in his hitters. But listen, at some point, you got to hit balls over the fence. I mean, they've gone 8 games and 282 at bats without hitting a home run. They're average like 0.53 home runs per game. I mean, it's like the last in the National League. In this day and age, I'm not saying you shouldn't be overly dependent on home runs, but you can't be starved for home runs and expect to win games. They got to start hitting some home runs. But the problem is, you pointed out, they have too many guys going up there trying to hit home runs. I mean, Gorman is just like one big home run swing after another. There's nothing smooth or confident or easy about his approach. So that's the problem. When they start pressing and everybody knows down there they're not hitting home runs, so everybody wants to go hit ball far, you know, and that can lead to more problems. So it's kind of it's very, 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 very disturbing to watch. But I got to believe that part will get better. I'm being redundant, but how much better? I'm not sure.
And how much time do you have? Right?
Yeah,
Like at a
right.
certain level,
I
like
mean, what do you do, right?
Yeah, I mean, and listen, we heard a lot about how, okay, well, when the schedule starts to get a little easier, start to turn around and whatever. The Brewers are on one right now.
Yeah.
They're good right now. I have to say the Cubs still look like the best team in this division to me. Like the Cubs right now, the Pirates have taken a big step back already. De La Cruz looks awesome for the Reds, but I'm still not. They still feel a little thin at the bottom. The Cubs still look like the best team in the division. And the Brewers are in a hot spot that we'll see in a couple months if they're still playing like this.
They're unreal though, the way they just keep pulling rabbits out of their hat. That's a really well-run organization.
Yeah, I mean the fact that like they were like going into the weekend, their bullpen was short. Didn't look like it, did it?
No,
and of course the Cardinals helped with that. There's no question about it. But okay, I want to get to a couple of emails on this.
Sure.
I think there's some good questions. And I'm just going to quote. First, I want to quote Nick. Nick sent me a nice email where he's been talking about one of the things we're talking about. And he said, listen, I love the Cardinals for better or worse. I will watch this team and follow them and cheer for them. But the same old talk from Mo in the pregame, and then bam, it happens first inning, bases loaded, Goldie up, and he has a weak pop-up, and the Cardinals fails to score. These are the moments where Cardinals fans have a right to be exhausted with its team. Since they lost the 2013 World Series, they don't have anything worth mentioning in the playoffs. Swept in 19, 22 to sweep in the LDS, and now we've had these last two seasons. As a certain, thank you for this email, Nick, because I think that is, I think it's actually a pretty concise way to see to like sum up. It's funny. I was talking about my friend that's an Orioles fan, and he coaches my son in baseball. And after the game, we were texting back and forth. I was watching the Cardinals game and he was watching at his house. And he's like, "Wow, that was a frustrating loss for you guys." Oh well, at least you guys haven't been terrible. At least you guys have been good for the last 50 years. You'll be fine. And I was like, "Yeah, that's not summing up the Cardinals fan base right now." Like at a certain level, it's very easy to do I think we have now gone long enough. Like I don't hear anybody saying Cardinals devil magic anymore. Like people don't hate the Cardinals anymore. Like isn't that weird? Like remember back when Deadspin was alive after I was gone, and they loved to rip on Cardinal fans, the best fans of baseball, and Cardinals fans would get so fired up. But like no one makes fun of Cardinals fans now because nobody cares. What do you need to make fun of the Cardinals for now?
Yeah, they're increasingly irrelevant, and that's sad. It's real sad.
It really is. And so I thought it was a good email from Nick to kind of talk about that. There's a manager question from Mark. I don't know if we need to get too much manager stuff. I think Bernie, you've covered that pretty well. But it's funny. Here's a question for a note from Michael, who emails us a lot. He's from Portland. He emails a nice note on this. I think this speaks. I'm going to intro his question. I'm going to close his question with a fun stat. His basically is like, okay, let's put this succinctly. The Brewers lose their top-rated manager, their two ace pitchers, and yet they're finding new ways to win. The Cardinals remake their entire bullpen, 3/5 of starting rotation, and now we're finding new ways to lose. Is this a talent evaluation issue, a talent cultivation issue,
of course,
a managerial coaching issue, or just dumb luck? And here's my fun stat on this. Here is my, if you just want to have a Cardinal fan tearing their hair out right now, guess who is leading the Tampa Bay Rays right now in OPS? Do you know? Do you know, Bernie?
probably the guy they just traded.
Richie Palacios is leading the Rays in OPS right now. He's got a 429 OBP. He's got 2 homers. He's only played 17 games. And Arozarena is really struggling for them right now, by the way. But like, to me, it's just like, oh, for crying, of course, and whatever. Kittredge is awesome. Like, I would still make that trade in a half a second. Like, but it just speaks to that thing that like, you just keep getting hit with those little things.
Right,
you keep getting hit with those little things. And I feel like all those moves in the moment make sense, and I totally get them. And the same thing with O'Neill, and the same thing with Hicks, who was good again. Though Hicks had a wild, I don't know if you saw his line on Sunday. He threw 5 innings, 1 hit, 1 run, 4 walks, no strikeouts.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like Hicks is just going to be a weird guy, kind of across the board.
Yeah, I'd give that one some time. So but he's been good so far.
I agree with that. But that's the thing, though, is it talent evaluation? Is it talent cultivation?
Well, of course it is.
Or is it Mo who really does Mo have any sort of point when he says, listen, we're all frustrated. I'm tired of hearing that too. But, what more can he say other than this is the team we've put together? I hope it works. But also, Again, it's not just talent evaluators. It's not just me. It's not just you. Fangraphs had them winning the division heading into this year. And you can see why. So when you watch this team now, is it coaching? Is it just bad luck? Is it slumping? Or like it's hard to, that one thing that's so frustrating about it is it's hard to put your finger on it, other than the fact that when you turn on Quick Pitch someday, there's like so many homers. They make it look so easy, Bernie.
Yeah, I know.
And the Cardinals they're just in this funk right now. And I think if this funk happened after they won the 11 World Series, it would be fine. But that's not what the last few years have been. And I think it's all just compiling into frustration, anger, and worst of all, app.
Listen, I put a stat on Twitter yesterday that I think took some people by surprise because they didn't realize it. Since 2017, we're talking about the 26-man payroll because they don't have the 40-man payroll available. Going back a certain way, so I just had to focus on the 26-man payroll. Since 2017, the Cardinals have spent. This is like I rounded these things off, but they're right on point. Might be off by just a tad. Cardinals have spent 1.2 billion, B as in billion, 1.2 billion on 26-man payroll. Milwaukee has spent 770 million. Milwaukee's got a winning percentage is 20 points higher. So yeah, you're damn right. It's about player evaluation, personnel evaluation, how you spend your money. And that's kind of the things I get on people's nerves with this, but I'm gonna keep doing it so they can stop reading me and stop listening to me, whatever.
Don't do that.
Yeah, spending money is important, but it's not everything. And the Brewers, what they've been able to do, being a better team for a long time than the Cardinals, despite spending $500 million less, tells you that money and payroll is not the only thing. In fact, that's another thing the Cardinals have done poorly, which is how they spend their money. And so they don't draft and develop pitching. Even they draft all these hitters that are supposed to be something. They don't turn out to be as much. They have really wasted money on the wrong guys. They have the devil magic used to be finding low-cost players who provide a lot of value for the dollar. They don't really do that anymore. It's all about personnel judgment and how you allocate your payroll, and let the Milwaukee Brewers serve as the ultimate example of that. Like one of our listeners said, and thank you. You take away Burns and Woodford, it doesn't matter. Woodburn, it doesn't matter. You take away Counsell, it doesn't matter. You take away David Stearns, it doesn't matter. I mean, you take away Devin Williams, it doesn't matter. They cycle through players, but look, every year it's like the Brewers like seemingly have like an entire new bullpen. It's like they just run guys in and out, in and out. I mean, they're winning games with Colin Ray. They're winning games with other lesser light pitchers.
They should have scored 20 runs against AJ Hall on Saturday, by the way. That guy had nothing, and they didn't do anything against him.
So the Cardinals had this big payroll advantage over the Brewers, and they have a much larger market size, which much larger revenue, but they don't identify talent as well as the Brewers do. And, to me, that's still the number one thing in this game. Identify talent. Tampa Bay proves it. Milwaukee proves it. There's some others that prove it. Yeah, you would hope you'd have a front office that would spend the money well. But the Cardinals are 11th in the majors right now in payroll, 11th. And I think it's safe to say they ain't getting their money's worth.
No.
So maybe I always laugh about this, but there's some truth in it. Maybe you want to say to them, no, don't spend. No. Be careful. You don't need another day. What do you do? Look at Michaelis. Look at what's happened here. No. You get to the point where you want to do a cartwheel, as if I could. The fact that they decided not to extend Goldschmidt, I thought they would have by now, or they would have before the season. I don't know whether this is the Heim Bloom effect or what, but they just keep walking into these traps that they set themselves, right? Their own traps. They keep walking into them anyway.
The Michaelis one looks so bad right now.
Ooh.
Like it looks so bad. Remember the one it almost feels like they did that as a way to introduce him as the opening day starter. Remember they announced that deal right before he was there. Oh yeah, Michaelis is going to be the opening day starter. They announced that extension, and boy, it looks awful. Like it looks awful. That's nice. That whatever you want to say about the DeWitt spending money, that 19, 20 million over the next 2 years. Could have come in handy, particularly when the Cardinals are facing Jordan Montgomery this week. By the way, the Cardinals are going to get Jordan
Oh
Montgomery.
gosh,
So
I think
watch it.
I think I'm just gonna like take the day off Wednesday. Not gonna do a show. Not gonna write. I can't take it. So anyway, I you know, I can't take the Jordan Montgomery overkill. I'm decidedly a big grump about that. I shouldn't be, but I am.
Well, it's a day game, so definitely take that. Definitely take that day off, to say the very least. But listen,
Would I like to have Jordan Montgomery right now? Of course I would.
yeah.
Is the starting rotation the problem with this team? No, it is not. They're not hitting. Okay, so unless Jordan Montgomery could have signed in DH, he could have done the Otani and actually pitched and then served DH the other time. What are we talking about here? It's like, well, and then the one thing I heard, and listen, I understand this. It's like, well, it's just when you get in the playoffs, you got to have a guy. You got to get to the playoffs first. So I don't know, what are we talking? And now we're venturing into fantasy land. It's like, what makes you think they're going to make the playoffs at this stage, right?
No one, myself included, was telling the Cardinals to go out and get a big bat this offseason.
That's right.
Like no one was, and
That's right.
for good reason. So it's frustrating. So we'll just see. It is very bizarre. It is one of the fun. Watching the games this coming week, one of the fun things I was thinking about was I was at the Big Ten tournament this year, and fans of Wisconsin and Indiana, who's the other team? Northwestern, were so frustrated with the lack of fouls that were called on Big Zach Edey that every time there was a foul, it was that awesome Bronx cheer. When they finally called a foul on Edey, there was this big Bronx cheer and everyone got so excited. That is how I'm going to be when the Cardinals hit a homer. I'm gonna cheer like it's Ozzy, go crazy folks, or it's Freeze. We'll see you tomorrow night. That's how I feel when we see a home run, because it's been April 12th. April 12th. It was a Newbar homer. Yeah, because I think Arenado had hit one that game. Right. And then the Newbar, which was pretty, and we got all excited.
There's a third inning. So since the third inning of that game, they haven't hit a home run. Like I said, it's 282 at bats.
It's rough. It's rough. And so looking at this week, it's hard to say they need to go this. I just need to see something not to feel terrible about, if I'm being entirely honest. And that Diamondback series is one they should have won in Arizona.
Of course.
So hopefully they can get a series win. The Mets was something that looked great going into the season, and now the Mets are one of the hottest teams in baseball. So there's a good Ken Rosenthal piece in The Athletic about how much you can count, how much you should believe in the Mets, how much not you should not believe in the Mets. But, this is, after this series, by the way, they've got 6 at Detroit, home against the White Sox, and then 3 more home against the Mets. This is the supposed Mets clearing out of the schedule that they were supposedly getting.
No.
You better do it.
Maybe hey, Chicago's bad. Detroit's got a winning record right now. Yeah. And you just mentioned how good the Mets have been.
So yeah.
That's why I don't look at schedule too much.
Yeah.
Because what we think you're going to be playing, they're not the team that we thought they would be or whatever.
I know. We gave the Cardinals so much credit for only losing 3 of 4 at Dodger Stadium, and the Dodgers are barely over 500 now.
Timing is everything. It really is.
All right, Bernie. Well, we'll see how it goes. But certainly there's reason to our concern. Here's my last thing I will close on. I was in Las Vegas for the Super Bowl this year. I'm not, as I think longtime listeners know, and people have read my stuff I've written for The Athletic and New York Magazine, know I am not a gambling person. I'm just not into gambling. I don't think it's actually good about sports, but I do every year. I do, when I'm in Las Vegas, I always do. I put down 1 bet for the Illini to win the national championship and 1 bet for the Cardinals to win the World Series. And so I went to the betting booth to do my futures bets. And I realized that this had to have been for the first time this century. The New York Knicks had better odds to win the NBA championship than the Cardinals had to win the World Series. That has to be the first time in 25 years. As a fan of both of those teams, that has to be the first time that's happened. So it's very sad that the Knicks are providing me solace from the Cardinals right now. So
that's right.
Dark time.
Well, no, the Knicks are fun to watch. I'm looking for the Eastern Conference Finals. I hope somehow the Knicks and the Celtics play, because
I can see it.
Jason Tatum, he got triple-double yesterday. Yeah, he looks so good. Our guy Jason Tatum. So
I generally dislike the Celtics, but I cannot root against Jason Tatum.
That's right. That's how I feel. I'm not a Celtics fan. I'm a Tatum fan. So.
All right, Bernie. Well, we'll be back next week to
All right,
see
buddy.
if it's this dark again. But otherwise, have a great week, everyone. Email us seeingredpod@gmail.com. Check us out at seeingredpod on Twitter and /X. Have a good one, Bernie.
Thank you, Mr. Will.